Now, if all of you could introduce yourself, starting with ladies first, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your profession, and things like that. Whatever else you want to add in there.
Is that me first? Okay. Yeah, so I'm Kaylee Erickson. I am originally I grew up on Put-in-Bay in Ohio, if anybody has been there. I lived in Lake Erie. And then I was at Akron for my undergrad and my master's. I currently live in Nashville. I was just saying I was in Minnesota for pretty much the last 7 years. And actually just since coming down here, I'm kind of in between jobs right now. I'm talking to a couple of startups right now about some potential positions. But I have had a lot of hybrid positions kind of throughout my career. When I left, I was a graduate assistant at Akron. I was one of our shells, GAs. And then I went to Minnesota, worked at Mayo Clinic for a few years. I was a health and wellness coach there. And then from there, I did a year in kind of a health management setting, and then moved on to managing a wellness department within an orthopedic health system. So I've kind of, always been in these very hybrid roles of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I can get into more specifics if anybody has questions. I'd say there's pros and cons to some of those. So feel free if you want me to dive in more, but that's kind of a loose background on me.
You want to go next, Cody?
Sure. Thank you guys for inviting me. My name is Cody Mansfield. I'm a physical therapist in the sports medicine department at Ohio State University. I've been a physical therapist for about 6 years. Even though I work in the sports medicine department, I'm more in the community, so in an outpatient facility. So I can end up treating anyone from your grandma to your high school athlete and everyone in between. So it's a pretty wide range. And I'm from Southern California originally, so moving to Ohio was a bit of a change with the weather. And Cali, I can relate to Minnesota. My brother now lives there, so we've both married Midwestern women, so we're stuck in the Midwest. Have to say goodbye to California, but yeah, I'm very passionate about physical therapy. I love working for Ohio State University, and I think this is a great club to kind of explore these health professions. So thanks for the invite.
And then Scott, if you want to go now.
All right, thanks everyone for the invite. My name is Scott Sinick. My current role is I am the Director of Rehab for Crystal Clinic Orthopaedic Center here in Akron, Ohio, in the Akron area. And with that role, I oversee all of our outpatient physical therapy and hand therapy locations. So I think we're at 10 locations with that, about 70 clinicians and about 120 team members altogether in the department. So we are an orthopedic hospital system. So we have all the same fund requirements that Joint Commission and Medicare bestows upon hospital systems. But we are, all we do is orthopedics, and we do have a little bit of a plastics line. We have about 6 plastic surgeons as well. I am originally from Portage County, so I went to Field High School, and then after graduating high school, I went down and got my undergrad and doctor and my DPT degree from Wheeling Jesuit University. And then upon graduation from there, I spent a couple years in Columbus working for Ohio Health, and then moved back home to the Akron area. And I also have my Master's of Health Administration degree as well. So thank you for having me, guys.
Awesome. And then Andrew, and then Brandon, if you guys want to go next.
Thank you again for having me. My name is Andrew Clapper. I am originally from Rochester, New York, and I finished my bachelor's degree in exercise science physiology at the University of Akron, graduating in 2019. And I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in exercise physiology and adult fitness at University of Akron. I'm currently still a part of the exercise science club and am a rehab specialist at Atlantic Medical Group down in Canton, specializing in just therapy, working with car accident patients and workers' comp patients. But thank you for having me.
Okay, so I guess I'm the last one. So my name's Brandon. Thank you guys for having me out here. So I grew up over in Canton, or Massillon, I guess, but we're right on the borderline. So I attended the University of Akron. I graduated December 2019 with my ex-phys degree. So I'm pretty fresh on the market. Immediately, as soon as I graduated, I was job hunting. And I actually landed a job over at Atlantic Medical Group, such as Andrew, doing rehab. A lot of the stuff that we do is electrical stimulation, ultrasound therapies. We have a bunch of different side jobs that we do throughout there, but mainly what I do is the therapy and making sure that the patients that come in here leave with at least less pain than what they came in with. That's mainly the goal. My current goal personally is after about a year of working there, I wanted to go and pursue my PTA. Right now, it looks like Stark State is where I'm going to be attending next year, money-wise. But and if things go well, I would like to pursue my PT and see how that goes. But thank you for having me.
Well, hello. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Alexis, for those of you who don't know me. I am the Public Relations Chair here in Exercise Science Club, and we're grateful to have all of you here tonight. So we're going to start off with some questions. The first one is for Cody. Did you apply to other schools besides Duke for your DPT, and why did you pick Duke?
Yeah, so I got my PT degree from Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and it's partly because it's the only school that accepted me. I applied to a few, maybe 5 others, and physical therapy school is rather competitive. Luckily, I really liked Duke's program. I was a student athlete in college, so I played soccer. And Duke at the time, for their curriculum, they had something called team-based learning, which I really liked the idea of just playing a part of a soccer team all my life. And they had some interesting concepts where once you're enrolled, they put you into a team with some of your other classmates. So they divide our class of 65 into like 12 different teams. And so my team, we would take a quiz or a test together where first you would take it individually, then you would take it as a group. And the thing I liked about that is that you couldn't just memorize the content, because if you just memorized it and you couldn't debate with your classmates about what the right answer was, then you probably weren't going to convince your classmates on the correct answer. And there were a few times where I convinced them of an answer choice, but it was actually the wrong one as well. So it was good idea to, this is a good way of training to not just memorize something and understand the why behind the concept. And I really liked that curriculum behind it. So that was a pretty big change for me to go from California to North Carolina. Again, to bring up weather, California doesn't really have humidity, but it was a great experience. I think it really set me up to the job I have today.
Okay, and the next question is for you again. What was the scholarship process like in DPT school?
Yeah, so the scholarship process is interesting. Graduate school is kind of pricey to begin with. A lot of my classmates have gone through various loans and doing some loan forgiveness type programs by working with a nonprofit afterwards, working for a nonprofit institution afterwards, to where I believe it's if you work for a nonprofit for at least 10 years or so, that your debt is forgiven. And that's actually my wife's situation, which we met in physical therapy school. So she works for a nonprofit, and that's how her loans are being forgiven. There are various academic scholarships that certain schools offer. It's very school specific though. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Brandon, what was your process of talking to your first patient?
I'm sorry, that kind of cut out for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your process of talking to your first patient?
It was kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. I really wasn't, too sure how to kind of communicate. I mean, I was prepped throughout all the classes that we took through the University of Akron, but it was more of trying to build that connection with them, and that's the whole thing when you have patients that you see 2 or 3 times a day, and they're in there for 30 to 45 minutes. You can't just sit there and stare at them and watch them do exercise. It gets boring. It makes them nervous, and you just get all frustrated about it. So being able to communicate with them and, trying to be their friend most likely. But that's just kind of how it was. I just trying to get the connection with them.
Okay. The next question is for Callie. Did I say that right? Oh, Carly. Sorry, there's an R missing on my document. So this next one is for Carly. What is your experience working with one of the world leaders in healthcare?
It was a really good experience. It was a little bit different. I went to Minnesota and I didn't know anybody there. So there was that aspect of a new job, new city, new state, all of that. The one thing I will say about Mayo Clinic is they're very process oriented, and what felt like at the time there was a process for everything. I mean, you name it, there's something in writing of how they want you to go about doing it. It felt like a lot, but I will say after leaving Mayo and going to other organizations that have zero process for anything, you realize how much having those processes in place helps keep everybody on the same page, and there's a lot less discrepancy. If, let's say, your manager's not there, you know where to go for a resource. So that was something that I really took away from there. That's really how Mayo is able to maintain such a prestigious reputation, is they have everybody working in congruency together, all the departments. Their communication is really good. They know how to keep everybody functioning as one. And that, again, is something that I found going other places after that. That wasn't always the case. So I really appreciate my time there. Everything like you were mentioning, kind of joint commission, we had all the same standards there that we had to follow, which is sometimes very different in kind of wellness. So again, that's how they're really able to maintain that reputation, is by making sure that everything is followed, to a T. And their motto there is the needs of the patient comes first. And that's really instilled in the employees, and they definitely look for people when they're hiring that are going to see beyond just maybe a job that's in front of them, but are able to look at the whole situation and really take into account what a person, whether that's a client or a patient, needs. So yeah, it was a great experience, and it was tough to leave, but I had an opportunity for another position, but I definitely value a lot of things from being there.
Thank you. The next question is for Andrew. Andrew, what job opportunities are available to someone with the MS in exercise physiology? And there's just part 2 on this question. So do you want me to say it now, or do you want to answer that first?
Hit me with the part 2 so I can think about it.
To work at a university in any capacity, do you need a PhD?
All right, well, that is a good question. So with a master's in exercise physiology, I think there's quite a wide variety. I mean, it also depends on relations and certifications. So I know for me specifically, I wanted to get into cardiac rehab, and I did my internship at the Cleveland Clinic in downtown Akron. But to get into that, you need to have your CEP, the Certified Exercise Physiology Test or certification. And the reason I'm pursuing my master's is to get more hours and more hands-on work with that, because I believe with the master's, I think it's 600 hours of clinical work to be able to take the test. So there's quite a few things that you can do. I mean, you can get into rehab. But I think a lot of it has to do with getting a certification, depending on what field you want to get into, if it's strength and conditioning or rehab, cardiac rehab, PT. There's a lot of different certifications, and personal trainer. So it depends on the route that you want to take specifically. And to work at a university, I'm personally unsure about that answer. I mean, I know a lot of the professors that we have that work at the university are doctors, like Dr. Kapler and Dr. Otterstetter and Dr. Richardson. But so I'm unsure if you need their PhD to be able to work at a university or not in those specific fields.
Thank you. Next one is for Scott. What did you have to do in order to be able to lead the entire rehab department?
That's hard to answer in a short period of time. Basically, what I would boil it down to is never say no to an opportunity, and always be willing to kind of stretch yourself professionally and personally, because you never know what the outcome is going to be. So that would be kind of like if in a nutshell, what I would say. The other thing is also having a plan of where you want to go 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and seeking out opportunities that will help you attain that goal. So coming out of undergrad, so I knew I was going into physical therapy, that I wanted to go to physical therapy school when I was in high school. So I went a very untraditional route. I got my undergraduate in physics, and then I went into physical therapy school because my backup, as Cody had mentioned, PT school is quite competitive. So my backup plan was to be a physics teacher if I didn't get into PT school, but got into PT school. And coming out of school, I know there's basically 3 routes you can take as a physical therapist. You can go stay clinical and become the best clinician that you can. You can go management, or you can go back into academia and research. So I knew academia and research wasn't in my skill set. And then after about a year and a half out, I kind of saw that the writing on the wall that my path was more down management. And then from there, it's just kind of looking for opportunities at the organizations that you're at, and not being afraid to kind of take that next step and really challenge yourself and make it a stretch goal. And then as your goals, as you say, all right, this is where I want to be at 5 years, and this is how I'm going to get there. The other piece of advice I would say is talk to people that are in that position and find out what they've done. So I did that. I mean, when I was down in Columbus working for Ohio Health, I still talk to him to this day. My manager's from there. He's one of the vice presidents of Ohio Health, and he's a physical therapist. And he kind of gave me some advice. He said, if you want to go that route, here's what I did. And basically I just kind of replicated that. So it's finding the people that are in the position that you want to get into, talking with them, learning the business, learning the language, how to speak to people that are non-clinical in healthcare, so administrators, everything along those lines, and then just kind of keep taking those steps and never being afraid to challenge yourself. Never be afraid to throw your hat in the ring. If you get accepted for a position, excellent. If you don't, then you use it as a learning experience to build upon later in your career.
Thank you. Brandon, what exactly does a rehab specialist do?
So we kind of work with any sort of patient that comes in, like Andrew was saying, and we work with a lot of PIs, car accidents, anything like that. And what we kind of do is they come in, they tell us the injury, and we kind of just try to maintain it as much as we can, and try to hope for good health after they're done. We do any sort of therabands, we do physio ball, or treadmill, exercise bike, the typical stuff that you see in a gym. But sometimes injuries are a little bit more severe, and as not a completely certified person to be able to do that types of therapy, we just kind of try to maintain it and be able to do what they can for more of a affordable price. Sometimes that can get a little bit costly, and sometimes insurance is not the greatest. and they don't accept you some places, and we kind of just allow them a little bit of, I don't want to say a cheaper therapy, because it's not cheaper. It's just more of a affordable, and we have the knowledge to do it. Andrew and I both do it over there, and we both have degrees for it. But that's just kind of where we're at right now, and that's why I want to go pursue, a more certified certification. That way, when people ask, it's a little bit more of, it's better for me, so I can actually tell them that, I'm certified to be able to do this, even, excluding my bachelor's degree.
Thank you. And everyone, I'm actually on my way to work because I'm a CA and an RA here at the University of Akron. So I'm going to ask this last question and try to pitch in when I can. But after this, then Andrew is going to be my helper. So another one for Brandon. What made you decide to go the route that you did?
Honestly, it was the first job that I got directly out of college. So it was an opportunity. I took it just to kind of see where it went. And I loved everybody I worked with. And that's just kind of how I started building a relationship there. And hopefully, as I further my education, I can kind of keep pursuing with the same company that I'm with. And hopefully we can expand a little bit further and kind of go from there.
Awesome. Thank you. Next one's for Cody here. What opportunities are there for physical therapists who want to work with athletes in a sports setting?
Yeah, so there are a lot of physical therapists who work in a variety of settings. It's kind of neat at OSU Sports Med. We actually have some physical therapists who are in the gyms of different high schools who are actually interacting with the high school athletes in the gym, providing a service there to look at their form and hopefully engage with these athletes before they're injured. So oftentimes the physical therapist will see a patient after they've been injured, kind of downstream. So this is kind of a neat way, just through various contracts that OSU has, where for certain high schools, we're actually in their gym, which is kind of neat. Within physical therapy, there are certain specialties. So I'm a specialist in orthopedics. We also have specialists in sports physical therapy. So you do have more physical therapists trying to engage with sports teams with sideline coverage and work in conjunction with athletic trainers. Lately, there's a lot of colleagues who are starting to go into like CrossFit gyms, things like that. So there's multiple settings that you could go into to work with athletes. It just depends on where. So I'd say I probably treat more of the active adult, and definitely we see our high school and college athletes as well. But yeah, there's always different opportunities. So I could use an example of one of my colleagues. He's actually on campus and provides coverage to the Ohio State University students during their like club sports and things like that, as well as marching band. So, it depends where you work, where those relationships are built, and kind of what connections each organization has or each clinician to kind of navigate that. So there are some really cool physical therapists out there. From Duke University, my physical therapy program, there's a physical therapist, and she's also a biomechanist. She got her PhD in biomechanics. Her name's Amy Arundel, and she now works for the Brooklyn Nets. So there's definitely some carved paths and then some paths that aren't carved out yet, So I think the physical therapy background can definitely it's definitely a skill set that can be used in the athletic population.
Awesome, thank you. Now on to, I'm sorry, I just have to clarify. It is Callie, not Carly. You were muted before.
It's Kaylee.
Kaylee, okay,
Yeah.
over 2, awesome.
No, it's okay.
All right, Kaylee. what did you get your bachelor's in? And also, if you went and got your master's, what did you get your master's in?
Yeah, so my bachelor's was at Akron. It was in exercise science with my concentration was strength and conditioning. So I actually worked in the weight room in athletics for, it was about 4 years between undergrad and then grad school. If you guys know Tim Campbell at all, I worked under him, primarily with men's soccer, but I helped out with a lot of the teams as well. And then I stayed on and I got my master's at Akron as well, and it was in exercise physiology. And I continued I was Rochelle's GA, but then I also did still help out in the weight room as well. And I had quite a few other jobs within the athletic department. One kind of led to the other. So I was pretty involved in athletics during my time there.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
And this next one is for Andrew. How is pursuing your master's coming along? Is there any suggestions you would have for someone who is pursuing that?
Sorry, I didn't know how to unmute my mic, but currently it's going well. A lot of the classes that I'm in so far, I don't want to say mimic what we do in undergrad, but are more in depth of what we learned in undergrad. So currently the class I'm taking this semester are advanced strength and conditioning with Tim. And it's kind of similar to what we did in undergrad, but a little more advanced, kind of giving you a little more knowledge about strength and conditioning. And then I'm also taking, I don't even know what classes I'm taking. But so I'm taking special topics health behavior with Melissa Smith. So it's a little more advanced and in-depth of health promotions. And then I'm also taking physiology of muscular activity or muscular exercise and activity with Dr. O. And it's a little more in depth of, I don't know if you take it in undergrad or not, but it's cardiorespiratory function. So everything's a little more in depth, so it helps you get a deeper grasp of everything. So far, I think it's going well just by being able to get a better understanding of what we learned in undergrad and kind of taking it a little further. And was there a second part of that question that I missed?
Any suggestions for people who want to pursue a path like yours?
I would definitely say go for the master's, especially if you want to be able to look like a little more knowledgeable about certain things, if you're questionable about things. I mean, having a bachelor's is a nice, strong base, but expanding it for those 2 more years with a little more knowledge is definitely recommended route.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is for Scott. What made you choose your career, and at what point did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
And so I was in, I think it was a sophomore year in high school, 10th grade, and we had to do a project, career development. So we had to pick a career that we wanted to go to, kind of ask some people some questions and kind of just write a little report. At that time, I wanted to be a college soccer coach, but I told my teacher that, and I finished the report and gave it to her the day before it was, or like 2 days before it was due. And she handed it back to me and said, "You have to pick a real job, not a soccer coach," which was kind of shocking. But anyway, so I scrambled to find something really fast. And it just so happened that my dad was receiving physical therapy at that time. So he said, "Well, tag along to my appointment. Maybe they'll let you watch and observe, and you can kind of write something up." So when I went to his appointment, that's when I knew that's what I wanted to get into. Was physical therapy, and the main reason why was the time that you spend with the patients, and then also still maintaining some sort of being active and not being stuck behind a computer screen or stuck in an office from doing desk work, which is kind of odd since I'm an administrator now, which I do desk work. But anyways, so yeah, that's what kind of drew me to physical therapy. And then once I got into PT school, I kind of just reinforced it. And then my first clinical rotation definitely reinforced it, seeing like actually being able to truly work with patients in that aspect and seeing the benefits that they receive from the care that we provide. And the impact that it has on their life. So it may seem minimal to us, but getting a patient, getting them out of pain so they can bend over and tie their shoes. It's big for that patient. Getting a patient if they're post-operative, like a rotator cuff repair in their shoulder, getting them enough range of motion that they can tuck in their shirt. So their life is just easy. And just seeing those little wins in our minds, but they're big wins for patients, kind of is probably the main reason why I've stuck with it.
Thank you. Kaylee, what do you like about being a health and wellness coach?
So it's been a little bit since I've been in that role. That was back when I was at Mayo, but I would say at the time, kind of similar to what you were just saying, Scott, seeing the wins that people have, whether, that was in a physical sense or more just from a psychological standpoint of making a change and things like that. The role there, they had just kind of changed it. So health and wellness coach was actually, it was doing small group trainings, it was doing clinical testing, it was doing programs, like I ran this sleep program, pregnancy program, stress management program, and then wellness coaching. So there's kind of 4 jobs within one as a health and wellness coach, which was nice because you got to do a little bit of different every day. It can be a little bit tricky to kind of find your strength sometimes, or you're always kind of pulled in a different direction, and maybe you really like doing the programmatic standpoint and making the content and presenting, but more of your time gets put toward testing. So we kind of used to say, like, jack of all trades, master of none, when we were kind of in that role. So there's definitely pros and cons to that, but in the end, you get to build relationships with people. And it was really kind of in that role that, I was coming from Akron and I worked in the weight room, worked in athletics. And when I got to Mayo, it was really more working with general population. So I went from kind of always, how do we make an exercise or what we're doing, I don't want to say harder, but something that somebody's going to gain from an athletic, competitive standpoint, to, okay, how do we change this and maybe make it adaptable for somebody who has a certain condition and their, range of motion is very limited. So it was a big switch. It definitely gave me a broader appreciation for different ability levels, where people were at kind of throughout the lifespan. But again, in the end, got to build relationships with people and see those wins that they had. And they're so appreciative and they're so grateful. I think for people in our field that are willing to listen, it's a big role of any kind of, I think, probably you guys know in therapy too, sometimes people need to come in and they need to vent and they need to get frustrations out, and you do, kind of have to be willing to listen to some of that. And you may have a day where you have something planned and you don't do what you have planned. That person, maybe had a workout plan and really you end up foam rolling or doing something else that day because that's kind of where that person's at. So always being able to kind of adjust, and meet them where they come in that day. Of course, our job is to motivate, when it's appropriate to a certain extent, but a lot of my work actually at Mayo, I worked with special populations. So it was a lot of MS, Parkinson's, amputees. That was just kind of one subsection of our training. But that really gave me an appreciation for slowing down, meeting people where they were at, and being able to adapt and knowing when to push and when you just have to understand when somebody has a condition, when you kind of back off. Weather plays a big role, things like that, and just really being in tune with that. So yeah, overall, I just like getting to build relationships with people and help people out.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is for Cody. How long did it take you to finish school?
I got my Bachelor's of Science in athletic training for my undergraduate degree, so that was 4 years. And then my Doctor of Physical Therapy degree was about 3 years. So I guess to become a licensed physical therapist, it was 7 years of schooling total for undergrad and graduate. Also, I participated in some post-professional programs through OSU Sports Med. So we have an orthopedic physical therapy residency and a orthopedic manual physical therapy fellowship. These are programs for licensed physical therapists to become more specialized and learn from people who have been practicing longer than them and who have more experience. So when I first graduated from PT school, I was a fully licensed physical therapist working for OSU Sports Med, but then I was also participating in essentially this mentorship program. So it's kind of similar to the physician model where once they graduate from med school, they need to go typically through residency or fellowship training to practice in the setting they're in. For physical therapists, it's a little different. We don't have to go into residency or fellowships, but it was a way to learn more about orthopedics. And yeah, so I guess 7 years of formal schooling. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Scott, what do you enjoy the most about your job?
That's I'd say probably what I enjoy the most of my current role. What I enjoy the most also gives me the most headaches at times, and that is team members and our staff. So 90% of the time, team members, I mean, it's great. I mean, watching them and seeing the joy that they get when they treat patients, when they're able to help our patients, everyone from the front desk, the moment the patient calls to schedule an appointment, all the way through our clinicians when that patient is discharged. So just seeing them interacting with the patients and watching them grow throughout their careers, I would say brings me the most joy in my position now. Because my position, I basically have two main functions. Make sure our patients can receive services, and then make sure our team have the tools and tool space, what they need in order to provide those services for those patients. Other than that, I mean, all the other stuff just kind of makes it complicated and more complicated than what it has to be. But yeah, probably my greatest joy and what I love the most is our team members and watching them grow professionally and be able to provide the services to our patients.
Okay, Andrew, what made you decide to go the career route that you chose?
So originally I wanted to do cardiac rehab, and I mean, I'm still in the thought process and just kind of balancing out school right now. But like was said before, it's just kind of like the patient relationship and just kind of being able to see the step-by-step process of watching someone come either off of having heart surgery or an injury, and then watching them progress through an exercise program and rehab, to watch them take those baby steps throughout the weeks to be able to progress to a, wouldn't say like a normal life, but just like a regular life of just being able to do things on their own. So that's the main thing that I like about this career path, is just being able to watch those steps go by.
Okay, and you actually have another question. Can you tell us more about all of the part-time jobs that you currently have? And then again, there's a second part to your question. So do you want it now or later?
I'll do the first one first. So, I mean, this is just currently my part-time job, as I'm dealing with, I wanted to kind of balance out school and work. This is my first time having a job as well as going to school, because all throughout undergrad, I didn't have a job. I was just kind of focusing mainly on school to get good grades. So currently this is currently part-time. I'm trying to progress into full-time, but just being able to balance out doing schoolwork, staying on top of that stuff, as well as being able to stay on top of work.
Okay, and it says, which do you enjoy out of everything that you do right now, such as rehab specialist, work with electrical stimulation, ultrasound therapy, and exercise/stretching programs?
You said, which do I like the most? I think it's a little bit of a mixture between the rehab therapy of like the exercises and stretches, as well as the ultrasound. The rehab stretches and exercises, just to kind of see, you have patients that come in with limited mobility, and then you have patients that come in after, because I've only been there for about 3 months now. So I've been with patients that have been there longer than I've been there. But so seeing their progress is really nice to see. But then having them transition from the rehab therapy over to the ultrasound, the heat ultrasound. One, it's funny that everyone comes in and they think ultrasound, they're thinking they're getting an image of something. And I have a lot of people that joke about like, oh, is it a boy or a girl? But it has nothing to do with imaging. It's a lot of heat waves that go in to kind of send circulation to all the muscles, ligaments, and tendons to kind of help increase the healing process, as well as decrease a lot of the pain that they have. So I would say it's a hard tie between the two.
Thank you. Next is Cody. Was it hard to get a job at OSU? Getting into the school is very competitive. Not sure if the careers are the same. And then there's a part two. So do you want yours now or do you want it later?
I can answer the first one first. Yeah, so once I graduated with my PT degree, I actually applied to several residency programs. And so I applied to OSU Sports Med's orthopedic residency program where I'd get paid as a physical therapist, but go through this training. And that was a hard program to get into. They only accept 2 people that apply each year. And then once I was accepted in that program after going through it, they hired me on. So by doing this residency training, it actually helped me get a foot in the door to get a job at OSU Sports Med, and I haven't left. So I've been there my entire career as a physical therapist, and I'm biased. I think I really thrive in an academic teaching hospital where, as a physical therapist, I not only do I have my clinical hours, but I'm able to mentor other therapists who are residents and fellows. I'm able to perform research, things like that. There's some teaching opportunities within the physical therapy and athletic training programs. It's just a lot of resources working at an academic hospital. So it's really fit all my interests as far as being kind of a triple threat with, clinical work, research, and teaching. It's really met all my check boxes for me professionally. And then you mentioned you had a part 2 to the question.
It says, what advice do you have for students wanting to work as rehab professionals such as yourself at OSU?
So and you're asking what strategies to like get into a program like at OSU, or? Yeah, so good question. I think, if we start at the undergraduate level, I think I mentioned earlier that Duke was one of the few schools that accepted me. And I although I thought I had a strong application with my athletic training background, a limiting factor was my GRE score. And I didn't actually spend a lot of time on that, studying for that test, because it didn't mean a lot to me at the time. I was busy with athletics. I was more interested in my athletic training classes, but that definitely hindered me quite a bit. And thankfully, Duke looked past the number and gave me a chance. So, I think making the most of your opportunities in undergraduate school is really important. Making sure you don't spread yourself too thin. I think that's easy to do. So really investing in those opportunities that will mean the most for you. As far as once you're in physical therapy school and trying to get a job, I think focusing on not only the hard sciences and just building up that knowledge set, but I think Andrew, Brandon, Scott, and pretty much everyone here, Callie too, mentioned the importance of the soft skills and just building those relationships with patients. Some of the stuff that's coming out of Duke recently is that, hey, your GRE score, your GPA doesn't necessarily make you a good physical therapist or a good professional. They're now looking at some of those other factors that make a candidate more well-rounded, and how that's actually making really good clinicians. So I'd say demonstrating to these application reviewers that you're not only a very smart person, but you're also a very well-rounded person and very relatable.
Thank you. And Scott, what is the toughest part of your job?
So the toughest part of my job is probably, the personnel issues, when you have to have those difficult conversations when decisions are made, or they stuff like that, where there's possible disciplinary action, stuff like that. So that's always a hard one. No matter how many you do, you always if it's not difficult for you, then you probably don't have a heart. So having those conversations, terminating employees, stuff like that, those are always the hard one, probably the most difficult part for my job.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is for Kaylee. When you were doing it, what made you want to become a health and wellness coach?
When I was working in the weight room with the Akron, it got to a point where I realized I was spending more time having conversations that were a lot of times unrelated to the actual workout. It was more trying to balance, being a student athlete and somebody wasn't sleeping. And that really kind of made me shift a little bit. So again, my undergrad, I did the strength conditioning concentration, and I had a desire to keep going with training. But, after the years there, I kind of was really drawn to more like health promotion side of things and really the psychological side of change and just kind of health in general. And so it was really a perfect fit. The job opportunity came up at Mayo, and I went and did that and kind of took that health and wellness coach role. And everything in that role was centered around behavior change and making lasting change. Obviously, everything at Mayo is very evidence-based, and we're really lucky, there, everything we did, we could, turn into research. We were able to pull data from everybody who came into the facility. They signed a thing and there was consent for that. So was able to kind of be on some of the front lines there of some of the research in terms of, wellness coaching was really starting to kind of make more of a buzz. And things within kind of the wellness industry shifted to be more of saying, hey, I think we need to really look at that whole person versus always just the physical side of things, or even just the mental side. We kind of have to look at the bigger picture. So it was really kind of that kind of pushed me to make the shift. And then my career has kind of continued more following, really focusing on behavior change. My job after Mayo I was doing more worksite wellness. So was working with a really large company in the Twin Cities area and started their wellness program. And we tried to make sure that everything there was really based on, again, looking at that whole employee. You might find, if anybody's interested in going into more of a worksite wellness, employee wellness, a lot of companies like to put a wellness program together and kind of say, okay, check the box. We have a wellness program. Our employees are good. You guys just take care of all that. And what you'll find if you're working within that is you can do as many step challenges as you want, but if things within an organization, if communication isn't strong, if there's not a lot of transparency and trust, that's not going to undo a lot of the stress that's there with employees. So we can do things to supplement things, but sometimes you have to be able to have some really tough conversations as that, wellness person in the company to look at the bigger picture and understand why employees aren't well. So again, it's pulling in that psychological side of things. We like to do the fun stuff too, but we have to be willing to look at the bigger picture. And then after that, I was managing at an orthopedic health system. They wanted to add more preventative wellness services. And again, everything we did there was rooted in behavior change and starting with the psychological aspect and how we were going to get people to where they wanted to be. So yeah, that's really what drew me to it.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. So this is just questions that were not asked before, and I'll get us started. I have two for Cody, both regarding Duke and the program they have there. So when you say Duke University, that's obviously a very prestigious school. You said that was one of the only schools you got into. If you're comfortable, could you tell us what other schools you applied to, and just kind of part of the application process, what did you find to be the most difficult part?
Yeah, so being from Southern California, I applied to a lot of schools out west. So the one that comes to mind is Chapman University, which is one of my where I did my undergraduate degree. I did apply to Mayo Clinic because my brother lives out there, and then I applied to Duke, and I applied to two others, and I can't remember what programs they were. I'd say the tough thing about the application process was probably just planning to take the GRE exam and organizing my letters of recommendation. There were some schools that I was interested in that had different prerequisite requirements than kind of the main PT schools, where in addition to some of your classic science courses like chemistry, bio, etc., they also required a neurology class, let's say, which was kind of a little added course to apply to some schools. So I'd say looking at those recommendations, for me, it wasn't too big of a challenge to get observation hours because I was an athletic training student, and I had rotations in a physical therapy clinic and with various sports teams. I imagine, especially right now, I don't know what schools are doing, but I imagine it's a little difficult to get observation hours at the moment. So that was something that I think a lot of people may struggle with, but I didn't have to at the time. And Andrew, do you have one more question, or was that?
Yeah, so obviously when you say Duke, I think of Duke's college basketball team. As an avid college basketball fan, was there any opportunities within a PT program with, and actually now you're at Ohio State, so I mean that's two powerhouses in all sports really. I guess at both places, what has your experience been, if any, with collegiate sports teams that are essentially professional sports teams?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm essentially the fan everyone likes to hate with Duke basketball and Ohio State football, but yeah, you know, at least at Duke being a part of the physical therapy program, there is a relationship with the School of Physical Therapy somewhat. So Duke basketball specifically works with a physical therapist who's also an athletic trainer, who does some of their rehabilitation. So his name's Nick Potter. We also have a movement analysis lab at Duke University that sometimes the student athletes will actually go through some movement analysis with 3D motion capture and things like that. So there's that capacity of it. Again, some of those opportunities are there, sometimes they're not. For OSU, Ohio State being here, you know, being in the suburbs, I don't interact with the collegiate athletes as much, but definitely the physicians that are on the sidelines for OSU football are, what am I gonna say? They're the heads of our department essentially. So they're there and they'll see those football athletes, or they'll also see kind of those active adults we mentioned. I'll tell you a funny story from in my athletic training days for my undergraduate degree. I actually got to participate in the pre-participation exams for the Anaheim Ducks. And at the time, I didn't know anything about hockey. And I was just volunteering because it looked good on the resume and I thought it'd be fun to do. But essentially all they put me in charge of was counting the number of pull-ups that each athlete would do, which again, I didn't know anything about hockey at the time, but apparently there's some guys that are known as enforcers, which are typically your 7-foot guys between 200, 300 pounds, whatever. Well, one individual got up there, did about 5 pull-ups, and I think I said when he got done that he did 3. And he got down and he's like, no, I did 5. And so because I was volunteering, I wrote down 5. But yeah, there's opportunities, especially at these, you know, different entities have different relationships, be it with Ohio State or Duke. You know, there's sometimes some opportunities to participate in the athletics side. So.
Awesome, thank you. Now, if anybody else, any other questions, just unmute and go ahead.
I had a question for Brandon and Andrew. So whoever wants to answer first. But when you guys graduated, you guys immediately got a job. What was your training process like when you got the job, and did you feel prepared from your courses in Akron?
Andrew, care if I speak first?
Go for it.
Okay. So when I graduated, I was pretty much blessed that I got a job immediately out of college. I kind of, the training process was I had a therapist before me who was there, kind of trained me for about 2 or 3 months. And after I felt like I was ready to be on my own, and that's kind of the whole process. And I was able to take my own clients at that time. and kind of go from there. I'm about at month 11. I will be on the 28th. So hopefully I can get to my year, and that's kind of what I'm praying for. And like I said, when I try to further my education, I would like to be more, I guess, certified in that field. So, but okay, Andrew.
Kind of bouncing off of Brandon. Right out of college, I didn't find a job. I was kind of struggling, and then COVID came through, and I had a job interview lined up with the Cleveland Clinic for a rehab position, more or less in the other side for Holter monitor setups. So I had to find an alternative. So I honestly did roofing for 2 months, completely off the charts, way left curve of a job. But once I heard about this opportunity through Brandon, and then getting the training from both Brandon and the other rehab specialist there, I felt very comfortable with what we've learned through our undergrad at Akron, kind of learning all the movements of all muscles, the different exercises, never to overwork someone, and it's also kind of with individual patients, you kind of learn all their different limitations. So everyone's kind of different. You never kind of prescribe the same thing for the next person. But I felt very confident going into this with undergrad with Akron.
Thank you.
I have one for Scott, actually. So as, I guess I'm just a little confused, not really confused because you did explain it well, but what is different between, I guess, what do you like better about being in a management position versus being in a kind of more hands-on talking to patients, dealing with patients, or do you like it better, and why?
Yeah, so I do like it better, and it's as I had, like I said, around like a year and a half, year two out of PT school, I kind of knew that I was my path in my career was going to be pushing more towards management and healthcare administration in general. I would say the reason why I like it better and why it suits me better and my personality is twofold. One, I still get a little bit more of like the coaching aspect that you kind of have when you're a therapist. But this time, instead of with patients, it's with our team members, kind of coaching and kind of being that leader for them. When you're a clinician, obviously that's one-on-one with the patient and kind of being, yes, you're helping them through rehab, but you're their coach. You're telling them and helping them along the way with that aspect of it. And then the second reason I looked at it, if the higher you go up in administration in any organization, a hospital system, a university, the greater effect your decisions have on more people. So me working 50 hours a week as a healthcare administrator with 120 team members underneath me, and we see between physical therapy and hand therapy, we see about 90-some thousand visits a year at all of our locations. So one decision that I make can kind of roll out and affect that many people at any given time, any given year. So I kind of look at it as if I'm going to work 40-50 hours a week, I can kind of affect change on a greater scale getting into administration than I could on as a clinician at that point.
Awesome, thanks so much.
Kaylee, I had a question about, you kind of said that you were a jack of trades. That's what your job was. So do you feel that after working at the Mayo Clinic that you were able to kind of concentrate on one specific aspect and kind of master it, as you said?
Yes and no. I think the one thing I'll say about kind of what I've seen, so I finished my master's in 2011. So in kind of the time since finishing that and kind of where I'm at in my career, I feel like I've seen some changes within kind of the wellness industry. And I think part of the mindset that you need to have in this industry is being okay with being a little bit of a jack of all trades. I have yet to have a role where I didn't also have to do some marketing and do some business side of things. Now, if you go just right into like cardiac rehab, you may not have to do those things. But I will say I'm grateful that I have had to do a lot of different things, because I think sometimes the good and bad thing about our field is it's very broad, and that can be great, and that can be also really hard to figure out where your best fit within the field is. And I think it takes actually doing some of those things to really know what you're passionate about. You're not necessarily going to know right when you finish school, grad school or whatever, undergrad. I think it's getting out there and kind of doing it and being open to trying some of the new stuff. I thought I was just going to really do training and focus on that. And then some experience within that setting led me to kind of go down a different path. And, when I was at Mayo and I was working with the programming there, they said, we need you to do the pregnancy program. And I was like, nope, that's not what I signed up for. And you know what, that ended up being actually one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of. We did education, we did training. It was a whole 10-week program. We partnered with OB within Mayo Clinic, so formed some really great relationships there, but never would have volunteered to do that. So I'm glad sometimes you kind of get pushed to expand a little bit outside of what maybe your goals are or what you have in your line of sight. So I think it's made me a better professional all around, just to have kind of all those different experiences within one. And I think I have learned more so where my skill set is strongest. And then been able to, now as I've gone further, I'm 34 now, kind of focus on, for my next role, where I really want to go, because I've been able to kind of experience a lot of different things. So I wouldn't shy away from it, but it can be overwhelming sometimes, and you might have to do things that you're like, I don't really want to do this, but use it as a learning experience to know what you like and what you don't like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi there. My name is Doug. I had a question for Cody. So I just applied to physical therapy school, and I have a couple different questions, actually, double whammy. So first one, how do you think the pandemic is going to affect the admission cycle for this year? And what are you most excited for in the future of physical therapy?
Yeah, good questions. I know physical therapy admissions are still happening. I'm not really privy to Duke's process anymore, since I'm not there anymore. But the nice thing about Ohio State University's physical therapy program is they do try to involve clinicians in the application process. And at least on my end, I know we've been getting requests for that, and they are actively interviewing. So that's good to hear that's going forth. And definitely academia has had to adjust very quickly with everything that's happened. And what I've seen from the physical therapy program so far is they've made some really good changes as far as keeping students in different pods, trying to basically mitigate risk from the pandemic and trying to control it, but at the same time offer a very rich academic learning experience. So yeah, I think it should go as normally as possible, but who knows? This is a very historic time for everyone, I think. But I know they're still accepting students, so that's a good sign. As far as where do I see physical therapy going in the future, or like change? Gosh, that's such a good question and very tough to answer. I might have to pass this one off to Scott, but I think I'm seeing more and more physical therapists in all settings take on leadership roles, and I've seen a lot of colleagues kind of get into leadership within OSU, and I'm hearing our voice being more represented in different circles that we weren't heard from before. So I just think physical therapy has a lot of opportunity for growth, and I think it's gone through a big research boom, and that's going to continue. And I think we're going to learn more about how our services can be better suited for the public. So I'm very optimistic and biased, but I think physical therapy is a good profession to be in, so to speak. So I might throw this one to Scott to kind of piggyback that last question.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so where I see physical therapy kind of going in the future, the pandemic has really kind of accelerated just healthcare in general. What would have taken 10 years to occur has kind of taken 1 month, 2 months, and with that being tele-rehab. So I do think that is going to become more integrated into the practice and the delivery of care for physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, so any of the rehabs settings that you have. It will not replace hands-on care. There's nothing that can replace hands-on care. I will argue that till the day I die. There's nothing that will replace hands-on care. The moment you put your hands on a patient, the moment you sit and you listen to that patient, and you have that simple 5-minute conversation with that patient, makes all the difference in the world in their recovery. So tele-rehab is going to be used in conjunction with that. And what it's going to do is it's really going to allow physical therapists, rehab clinicians, the opportunity to truly engage with their patients on another level and make sure that and increase compliance with home exercise programs, prevent injuries. It's going to allow physical therapists to get into a little bit more into like the wellness component, prevention. So I think that's where you're going to start seeing physical therapists kind of going from there. I know Cody had mentioned that there's some PTs that are kind of integrated into CrossFit gyms and stuff like that. So you're going to start seeing more of those business models where if you go private practice, PT, yes, they have their physical therapy practice, but they're also getting a consistent revenue stream with their gyms, with their massage clinics, anything along those lines that will kind of give them a constant monthly reoccurring revenue stream in conjunction with their therapy. So it's an exciting time in physical therapy. It's the job market. It's depending on where you want to end up, in what setting, in what location. Sometimes it could be a little bit. So if you want to go to Columbus or Cleveland and you want to work outpatient orthopedics, those jobs are a little bit harder to find. If you're willing to go down to Texas, Alabama, Las Vegas, you can find jobs there in a heartbeat, and also make a pretty good wage in those locations, because not a lot of people want to travel down to those locations. So, but it's an exciting time. I wouldn't get discouraged getting into PT school. Once you get in there, build relationships, talk with your professors. Your professors will know people. So if you want to go neuro, if you want to go pediatrics, if you want to go outpatient ortho, talk with them, and then design your education around that as your goal. So, okay, I want to go pediatrics, so I need to take this clinical, I need to talk with these people, and then just go from there. So
that's interesting. You said what you said about the wellness sector kind of being incorporated into PT. Are you able to get any more detailed on that as to what you've seen?
Yeah, so I think what you're going to start seeing, and I'm speaking out of the viewpoint from a healthcare hospital system. You're going to start seeing hospital systems. I mean, obviously in this area, it's Cleveland Clinic, it's UH, it's SUMA, Crystal Clinic a little bit with the orthopedic, but you're going to start seeing them go after the bigger employers and say, hey, directly to us, like your employees get hurt, come to us. We can do this for the wellness aspect. I think Kaylee had mentioned that earlier. You're going to start seeing that more, where companies, big employers, are going to do everything they can to prevent downstream costs in healthcare, because more and more research is coming out showing that if you catch it early, yes, you may spend $1,000 doing that, but it's going to save the company $3,000 in healthcare claims later on in the year. So you're going to start seeing that more and more. And physical therapy, they're trying to push that more, and also trying to get into sleep health and nutrition. So kind of going more holistically compared to just an intervention at a specific joint aspect. So
Thank you.
Can I piggyback off of you, Scott?
sure.
Just if it's helpful at all. So the last organization I was with back in the Twin Cities, so it was an existing orthopedic health system. And so I was in a facility that was physical therapy, and then we had physician clinic. We did have surgery centers then within the health system and other locations, but really what we were doing there was kind of this model of integrating wellness right within an orthopedic system, and trying to, again, kind of that downstream effect of one as community members. People would say, is that kind of silly to try to prevent, don't you want to bring in, people who are getting hurt? But we know at some point within the lifespan, people are going to have an orthopedic episode. So the goal of adding wellness was really to try to get those people so that when they did have that orthopedic episode, they chose Summit as their provider because they already had that relationship in terms of kind of wellness. And this is where I go to work on my quality of life. So we had kind of the community aspect, and then we implemented a process where physicians could refer their patients for wellness. And then we were kind of a non-clinical option. It was all out of pocket. So that was interesting to try to be a cash-based business within an insurance-based facility and organization. Pricing, you have to really work on that of what people are willing to pay. So we had personal training, community education, we had a registered dietitian, and then some yoga classes. So we tried to be able to offer things, for somebody who was finishing physical therapy, and maybe they were, cleared, right? And you're kind of, okay to go, but maybe they're not quite at the point where they want to be to then go do their normal activities. A physical therapist could then kind of say, hey, why don't you work with one of our personal trainers to just work a little bit more on things we haven't been able to focus on that you want to do within, your sessions. And we're really trying to figure out where is the best point within the episode of care to have that happen. Is it the physician referring? Is it the physical therapist? And for what it's worth, what we found over 3 years was it really is more beneficial a lot of times having the physical therapist refer on for wellness, whether that's nutrition, because they have 10 minutes 2 times. So that can kind of make was you're kind of integrating wellness in. So if somebody has more questions, I can definitely expand on take started. But we were trying to kind of figure out that wellness within this kind of new setting. So
Yeah, definitely exciting. Thank you.
yeah.
I had a question anyone can answer, but how have you made the most out of your job in the midst of COVID?
So I'll go first. Kind of give you guys an idea. Obviously, when COVID hit, obviously we shut down all surgeries and everything. And 80% of our referrals in our practice are post-surgical. So obviously that took a huge hit to the amount of patients that we were seeing in our clinics. So my duty changed. I went from director of rehab to director, in charge of operations for our incident command center for our team. So I was doing, helping our facilities, helping our purchasing, just anything you can think of, trying to prepare for the surge that we thought was coming in Ohio in March and stuff like that. So basically helping to reorganize our hospital from an orthopedic hospital to possibly having to admit and treat COVID-19 or other healthcare patients. So there was a lot of stuff that we had to do. So my hat for director of rehab went out the window, and I became basically anything and everything, and was all hands on deck. So it's one of those ones. It was a challenge, but it was something that I don't. Obviously, I don't wish the pandemic happened, but looking at it, for me personally, I was able to learn a lot in a very short amount of time. And it's one of those ones I'm happy to have had the opportunity of leading through a pandemic, and it's something hopefully I never, knock on wood, we never have to do it, never have to see again in my lifetime. But it's something that I've learned a lot from that experience and taken away a lot of skills from it.
Yeah, I think I found us being adaptable in this for this year. Our clinic was closed only to patients who were of high need, and we're being allocated to different parts of the hospital at times, or asked to take on different roles, and just trying to be a team player, so to speak.
Are there any more questions before we move on?
I have one more question. It's for Andrew. You had mentioned that you had to do like 600 observational clinical hours. With COVID, are you able to use your job as part of that? And if not, has it been like a struggle to try and find someone that lets you observe?
So I was thankful enough to do 400 of them through the Cleveland Clinic during undergrad. I currently am pushing off as much of the clinical hours as possible right now. I know last semester when the pandemic began, I know they were transitioning a lot of the clinical hours to online clinicals, which I view that, I mean, it gives you the knowledge, but it doesn't give you that on feel, so it's not like but I feel like you don't get the true feel of how getting hands-on clinical work actually is. But I've spoken with Dr. O, and I think we're going to try to work out something where I don't have to cut back on my own hours to pursue another internship. But I think I'm going to push that off until my final semester, so next fall. So hopefully by then we will be able to have a little more hands-on work and being able to do something with that.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, last chance for questions. All right, awesome. So what we're gonna move into here before we close out is just a last section of just a final kind of 30 seconds, kind of any advice or the biggest lesson that you guys have learned as professionals, just kind of your biggest motto that you're going by or something like that. We'll start with Kaylee, and then we'll go to Cody, Scott, Andrew, and Brandon.
Sure. Well, I would say, looking back kind of on my career, one of the biggest things I think, it's been mentioned a couple times, but really building relationships, whether that's relationships with professors, whether it's when you're doing your practicum or internship, getting to know the people that work at the facility that you're at. You kind of come to see throughout your career, a lot of it, I hate saying it, but it is who you know. And people, you make an impression, and you can make an impression at a really early point. There were people, so I was teaching when I was a graduate assistant, but then I stayed on teaching at Akron for a year. And there were definitely certain students who made quite an impression just of their motivation. They would, reach out, ask questions, and then I was more than happy to be a reference for them. Nothing sometimes is worth more than somebody who will, put their foot out for you, and they'll reach out to somebody they know. And I'll offer this up too, if I can ever help anybody in any way, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm not just saying that. I know how much that can be helpful, and especially right now with the way kind of the world is and things like that. I've had students email me, resumes just to look at, anything like that. Please don't hesitate. I know how helpful that can be. So build relationships. It will pay off, I promise.
I think I'm next. I think mastering the basics is something I really preach, be it your clinical knowledge or even just satisfying your job responsibilities by making sure you're hitting all those benchmarks goes a long way. Make sure when you're working with other people, you're positive and you're really engaged with being a solution. And that'd be my advice.
And my advice would almost be kind of merging basically what Kaylee and Cody basically just said. So leaving everyone and everywhere better than what it was when you before you got there. So that means on a day-to-day basis, contributing, adding some sort of value to every class that you're in, adding some sort of value to every interaction you have with somebody. And it could be, it could just be something little, like you made them smile. Okay, they left better than what they were beforehand. And then also at the other end, like with like Cody said, being like mastering the basic skills. So being so good that they can't ignore you. And so that way they know that, okay, you're invaluable and you are a master of your trade, whatever that may be as you guys go throughout your careers, but being so good that they can't ignore you, and then leaving everything and everyone better than when you arrived.
Kind of piggybacking off of what everyone else has said so far. The advice that I would give is kind of go in with every day as a new day. We all have our ups and downs. Patients have their ups and downs, but just kind of going in with a positive mindset and just being confident overall with what you're doing. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You can't know everything. So just kind of utilizing your coworkers and peers and just kind of creating that strong base to kind of go throughout the day.
Some advice I would give is don't be scared. As you graduate, you're going to have to deal with some experiences that you're not really comfortable about, and you just kind of have to kind of get over that hump and try to get comfortable with it, and maybe you'll end up liking it. For an example, I originally graduated and wanted to go into personal training and pursue that, and now I'm trying to pursue PT school, and it's just a different world. You just never know what you're going to do after you finish your undergrad, and just don't be scared to try new things and pursue something different if you're just not happy with where you're at. And that's the main thing, is be happy with what your job is, and don't do it for the money, do it for your happiness, and that's kind of what I would lead off with.
Thank you.
Well, go ahead, Tori.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, everybody, thank you for all of that great advice and information that all of us students can take with us on our journey. All of you are clearly more experienced than all of us, so we're listening to literally everything that you guys have said. But before we close out, I just wanted to tell a short tale, if I will. Sorry for all the background information. Hi, thank you. No, I'm good. Okay. Yes. It's 8:58. Yes. Sorry, guys. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, which is pretty much everybody in this chat besides Cody and family and close friends, but Cody Mansfield was actually my physical therapist for my senior year and then the year after that. I used to play volleyball and I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus, and Cody had just served as a very important factor. Besides even just as a physical therapist, he had played a very huge role, thank you, in my life, just because, like I said, I play volleyball and I wanted to go to college and play volleyball. And since I couldn't do that because it happened my senior year, I sort of fell into a depression. So he really boosted my confidence and helped me to have a very optimistic mindset. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm no longer in the criminal justice route. I had actually changed my major to physical therapy. And then I changed it to occupational therapy as well, again, which is just like last year. But he is the reason that I am going the route that I am going. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Alexis. That's really, really kind of you to say.
All right, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. Professionals especially, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. And we'll be reaching out with any other time that we'll be doing one of these to see if we can have any of your awesome minds back with us. So thank you.
Thank you.